Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching and learning in Indiana and around the world. More at education.indiana.edu. Main Source Bank, headquartered in Greensburg, Indiana, offering products and services to fit every stage of life. More information at mainsourcebank.com. Main Source, life needs a great bank. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company. Fiber Internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Efforts to crack down on immigrants who entered the country illegally are ramping up. Ahead, we introduce you to a family who fears being torn apart.
I said, after all these years, you decide now to say that my husband is being detained for a deportation that's been pending many years ago?
The future of Indiana's Medicaid expansion program, HIP 2.0, is in jeopardy. Coming up, a healthcare policy analyst joins us to explain what could happen to the roughly 250,000 Hoosiers enrolled in the program. And overcoming misconceptions about Islam with a simple event.
So we wanted to create a platform in which you can come and safely ask your questions and have a discussion with Muslims in your community. Find out what this is, who we are, why do we wear this.
Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state.
Vigo County's not broke. City of Terre Haute is.
Right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. The family of a northern Indiana man is speaking out after U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers detained him during a routine check-in last month. He owns a popular restaurant in St. Joseph County, has a Social Security card, and pays taxes. But as Barbara Brozier reports, he's in custody because of an incident that happened more than 15 years ago.
Eddie's Steak Shed is well known in northern Indiana. People come here just as much for the friendly staff as they do for the steak.
We feel like a big family.
But this place hasn't been the same over the past month. The patriarch of the business and a family is gone.
How could this be? I mean, this man pays our checks, pays his taxes.
Roberto Berrystein came to the United States illegally in 1998, but had since gotten documentation to work here. He owns this restaurant in Granger, Indiana, and traveled to Indianapolis with his wife last month for his yearly check-in with immigration officials.
They came outside in the car, knocked on the window, and they said, "Are you Roberto's wife?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, your husband has been detained due to a deportation he had 16 and a half years ago." And I told them that's a joke. And they said, no, it's true.
Roberto's wife, Helen, says the incident the officers were referring to stems back to 2000. They decided to take a trip to Niagara Falls and took the wrong route, finding themselves crossing the border to Canada, where Roberto was detained because he didn't have proper documentation.
We got a lawyer, and the attorney got him on a bail for $1,500, and they told him that you have to leave voluntarily in a month.
But Helen was pregnant at the time and suffering from high blood pressure, so Roberto decided to stay.
He did what he thought was best, so he took care of his family.
An ICE spokesperson says when Roberto failed to depart the United States by that time as required, his voluntary departure order reverted to a final order of removal. The Trump administration is changing the way the government prioritizes people for deportation, expanding its efforts beyond just those who face criminal charges.
We don't want to have cartels here. You don't want to have drugs in your high schools. You don't want to have killers next to you. You want to have, you want to feel safe when you leave your house. I truly believe that. And this is why I voted for Mr. Trump, because of all his policies, of everything he said. I agree to that.
But she doesn't understand why her husband is among those being detained. She says he's an upstanding business owner who's in the process of applying for a green card, not a criminal. Now his children are trying to keep the family business running, not knowing what the future holds.
The worst thing that would come worse would be deportation. And it's hard to think about that. And it's hard right now, too, because, he has a grandson. And he can't see him grow up,
Roberto's lawyer filed an application to keep him in the U.S. for at least the next 12 months. He's also trying to reopen his case for citizenship. But it's unclear when a decision will be made, and the process is often lengthy.
It bothers me, too, that, I can't pick up the phone and, hey, what are you doing today, You want to go do something?
For now, all his family can do is wait and hope immigration officials make a decision in Roberto's favor. They visit him once a week at a detention facility in Wisconsin and say he wants nothing more than to come home to Indiana.
He's trying to hold up. He said, I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't committed a crime. Just the only crime I've done, he said, it's that I want to be here in the United States. This is my country. He said, I love this country.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Barbara Brozier.
An Indianapolis-based organization that helps resettle refugees says President Trump's new executive order on immigration means more funding problems for them. The order signed this week suspends refugee resettlement for the next 120 days. Exodus Refugee Immigration says that also pauses its funding, which is tied to refugees coming to Indiana.
We have a couple more coming that have been already granted visas this week and next. But after that, the long term, we're not sure exactly when we'll receive more cases.
Exodus says it cut 40% of its staff after Trump signed his original travel ban earlier this year. Vargas says he expects to resettle up to 9 refugees this month instead of the nearly 80 Exodus planned for. Determined House Republicans are pushing ahead with divisive legislation to undo former President Barack Obama's health care law. They held marathon all-night voting sessions this week in key committees despite Democratic protest and intense opposition from doctors and consumer groups. I spoke with Indiana University professor Kosali Simon about what the proposed changes could mean for Hoosiers and the state's HIP 2.0 program.
So the federal government says to the state, you make coverage available for people who are eligible, and whatever services they're going to need, we, the federal government, will pay our share of it, and you, the state, pay your share of it. That is the structure that is proposed to change. The new structure that's being discussed is we're going to give you a fixed amount of money to the state, the federal government, and then the state gets to decide how that's going to be allocated. The fear is that those amounts are not going to be enough to cover what might happen in the future.
And then is there any idea of how long that assistance could last?
The structure will be such that every year the federal government will give an allotment. We don't know yet, is there a flexibility built in so that 20 years from now, when healthcare costs are higher, how much more will that amount be?
So we know the money will be phased out for states. What does that timeline look like?
The timeline is 2020. So the current details are that states that have expanded Medicaid, whether it's the form that the federal government wanted or the forms that some states did, like Healthy Indiana 2.0, which are called waiver programs, all those states that have expanded Medicaid under the ACA gets to have those individuals still covered. But after 2020, no new enrollment can happen in that program. So anyone who is kicked off the program cannot come back, and it also means that the amounts that the states will be given as here's your fixed amount now will be determined by how many people are enrolled as of that time.
So the designer of the Healthy Indiana plan, Seema Verma, of course, is nominated to be the head of Medicare and Medicaid programs nationally. So is it a surprise to see the shift from the type of programs that she helped design?
So I think even though she has not yet had a formal role because the appointment is still in process, it's clear that there are many concepts that are in common between a more conservative approach to healthcare reform than what we've seen in the previous administrations. So even when we compare across the different versions of replace and repeal laws that we've seen floating around, as well as the current bill we have to consider now, it's the concepts that come up again and again are ones of, should the states have more leeway in how they design Medicaid? Should the states have more ability to have sanctions or to have incentives than what the federal government had designed? Is there going to be more of an assistance given in the form of age or income-based assistance? Is there going to be more leeway that insurers have about what products are going to cover? Or is insurance going to have these minimum standards of covering all essential benefits and pre-existing conditions and so on? So I think those they're certainly the big issues that are going to come up again and again are in common regardless of what specific bill, and many of them we can see in Indiana's Medicaid expansion.
President Trump met today with congressional leaders to discuss their proposed replacement to the Affordable Care Act. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Do you know how we came to be known as Hoosiers? Coming up, the history of the nickname and why it wasn't always a term people here embraced. And the Muslim community in Columbus is working to dispel misconceptions about their faith. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Nature takes you places where you've never gone before.
It's watching something that's actually happened.
Nature sure draw me in the story.
Just their power and their grace.
You know, it was just so beautiful to watch them.
The movement and just watching the body and watching the chase.
Like this huge, lush, vibrant watercolor.
James.
There was such a shot of underneath watching these elephants swim in this deep water.
I had no idea even they could swim like that.
I saw that one monkey pulling on this one monkey's tail, and the monkey like, man, what you doing? What you doing?
It's like the theater of the wild or something.
7 billion trillion animals living on one planet.
It's like more colorful than you think life can possibly be.
Somewhere between the mystique and the beauty of it is reason enough to sit down and watch.
That's life, and that's nature.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brosier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. Former Indiana Senator Dan Coats is expected to easily be confirmed to head the National Intelligence Office. A committee voted 13-2 yesterday in favor of Coates' nomination. Coats still has to be confirmed by the full Senate. He served on the Senate Intelligence Panel until he retired last year. Where should a new jail be located and how should it be paid for? Those two questions are leading to disagreement in Vigo County. As Joe Wren reports, some are accusing the Terre Haute mayor of supporting the project only because he's hoping it will help his city's struggling budget.
City leaders say a new jail has to be built. It's been in the works since county officials settled a 2002 jail overcrowding lawsuit with the American Civil Liberties Union. The Vigo County Council picked a spot at the former International Paper property near the School Aquatic Center. Some say it shouldn't be on riverfront property primed for economic development. Now there's controversy on how to fund it. Terre Haute Mayor Duke Bennett says he supports a 1.25% public safety tax increase that would be split between the city and county.
It's not to make the budget bigger, it's to pay for existing things where we've lost money from that people want those services.
Bennett says the city's portion of the funds would free up the budget to work against the $8.1 million city deficit. But Vigo County Councilman Brendan Kern says it's not up to the county to make up the city's budget shortfall.
Vigo County's not broke. City of Terre Haute is. So Vigo County made adjustments, as did most entities in the state of Indiana.
Kern says another option the county is looking at is tacking on an additional 0.25% tax to pay just for the jail, which ends once the project is paid off.
Well, you'll no longer be able to light up in bars or private clubs in Howard County. Officials there approved a smoking ban this week that includes e-cigarettes. It will go into effect April 1st, with smoking at outdoor events in city parks being prohibited starting July 1st. Several cities around the state have local ordinances tougher than the statewide smoking ban that exempts bars and casinos. Lawmakers want to make it easier for domestic violence victims to keep their cell phones away from their abusers. A proposed bill would allow cell phone providers to give victims control of their own phone and number without permission of the primary account holder. The bill is expected to easily pass the House after unanimous support in the Senate. Legislation unanimously approved by the Senate Health Committee will require students at Indiana's public colleges and universities to receive a meningitis immunization before attending. The vaccine is already required at K-12 schools. The bill's author says the legislation is really targeted at students from outside Indiana. The nonprofit Sycamore Land Trust says it will cost hundreds of dollars to replace signs people vandalized last year at one of its preserves. Some signs were defaced with rocks, others were removed from posts along the Bean Blossom Bottoms Trail in Ellettsville.
If people want to break something, they're going to find a way to do it, but we're looking at ways to post them that are sturdier, put them farther away from the trail sometimes.
There are cameras along the trail the organization can monitor if there are any vandalism issues in the future. You could be paying a higher price for services from the nation's largest funeral home company. A report from two consumer organizations says Service Corporation International charges a median price of 47% to 72% more for some services. The company doesn't list its prices online. It says in a statement it believes a personal conversation is the best way to help families during a difficult time. The Owen County Recycling Center will shut down April 1st because the county says it's too expensive to operate. At current operation levels, the county would lose a projected $50,000 by the end of the year. As Becca Costello reports, some in the community are upset to see it go.
The center accepts both trash and recyclables, but it makes its money on recycling. Owen County commissioners say declining recycling profits and competing waste removal services have rendered the center unsustainable.
They don't recycle like we do.
They say the price of scrap alone has dropped around $250 per ton in the last 3 years. The center has accrued more than $12,000 in debt in the past 2 months. But without the center, there's fear more trash will litter Owen County's roads and highways.
I hate to see them close it because this will probably be the trashiest county in the state. I mean, I don't know what else I can say or do.
Before Terrell received the closure notice on Monday, he was planning on operating through 2017. But now, he's doing all he can to clean the place up by next month. Regulars of the center expressed concerns about the closure.
We generally come in here once a week and sometimes twice, and I hate to see it closed up.
The county considered doubling the price for each bag of trash dropped off to help offset its losses. But after calculations, the commissioners concluded the center would still exceed its $100,014 budget. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Becca Costello.
Meteorologists confirm last week's severe weather was responsible for 11 tornadoes across the state. They touched down from just north of Evansville all the way to Salem. No injuries were reported in Indiana, but several houses and buildings were damaged and trees were uprooted. And Joe, I was covering that storm in Gibson County last week, and it was remarkable. You see all of that damage, that no one was seriously injured.
Yeah, now we go from temperatures in the 60s to 30s for the next
Winter's
5 days.
back, it seems.
Unbelievable. Thank you very much, Barbara. Indiana residents are now federally known as Hoosiers, thanks to efforts from U.S. Senators Joe Donnelly and Todd Young. Even before the official designation, the term Hoosier was the preferred nickname of most residents. James Vavrick takes a look at the history of the word Hoosier, where it comes from, and how the meaning has changed over the past 2 centuries.
Whether you were born and raised in the state of Indiana or visiting from out of town, you most likely are familiar with the word Hoosier. From the landscape to the people to sports teams, Hoosier is a descriptor given to anyone or anything coming from the state of Indiana. But what does the word Hoosier actually mean?
I would say both someone from Indiana as well as someone who goes to Indiana University or an Indiana university here.
I think definitely a Hoosier does qualify as someone who went to IU as well.
Well, to me, I guess a Hoosier means somebody who's willing to be friendly to everyone, kind of introduce themselves, get to know people.
Rohan Matthew is a student at Indiana University, but was born and raised in Illinois. He considers himself a Hoosier because of the values he's gained while living in Indiana. But technically, the description might not apply. The only real definition of a Hoosier we all seem to agree on is somebody who simply lives in Indiana. Could the Hoosier meaning go any deeper than that? Who even came up with the term?
I mean, the first time you hear it, if you're not from Indiana, what's a Hoosier? And if you don't know anything about IU basketball, really, what's a Hoosier?
Dawn Backen is an editor for the Indiana Magazine of History based at IU. The magazine's most recent bicentennial issue features several articles showcasing the Hoosier word and its different uses in writing. Articles written as early as 1905 use the word Hoosier, but Backen says she's seen it pop up in other writings that date as far back as the 1830s.
So it's still kind of the old-fashioned, searching through papers, and you just happen to hit on something like that, and then you think, oh, this might be interesting to people who are interested in the term Hoosier.
The articles tell a variety of stories about the word, and the more you investigate this issue, the more you find out that Hoosier wasn't exactly a term of pride for Indiana folks in the beginning.
And this woman said, well, of course I'm a Hoosier. And I was like, no, shh, don't let anybody hear you say that. It's not good to be a Hoosier in this city. Just keep it to yourself.
While the original meanings vary from article to article, they tend to start out as a nasty nickname given by travelers to describe rustic settlers found in deep rural Indiana. From there, it became a stereotype given by city folk who viewed poorly the country folk working on farms in rural Indiana.
It took Indianapolis a long time to really grow up into a city, since it was basically created by the General Assembly. It was the 1840s really before it was kind of a respectable full-size city that East Coast people would come and visit and not just entirely sort of turn up their East Coast noses at it.
The discovery continues in Indianapolis, where researchers at IUPUI's University Library are using big data to pinpoint the word's origin. This time it's on an interactive map providing loads of information, again dating back to the 1830s. Christy Palmer is one of the researchers at the library. She's part of a three-man team that molds different departments of the university into a number-crunching powerhouse. Their research also shows that the word originated with outsiders, coming from the Ohio and Wabash rivers.
So the strong connection to river life is very apparent, reinforced by the maps. When you see the instances of Hoosier appearing on the map, they are following those rivers. So that was one thing that was sort of reinforced by what people thought was happening, but we absolutely see evidence of it through these maps, and that was exciting.
Researchers say since the word was well-rooted in Indiana identity, residents had to claim it with pride despite the clear evidence that it began as an unflattering description.
And the people from Indiana are actually taking it on and saying, okay, we may be from the country, but we're not necessarily all of those things. We're just country folk. And we're honest, and we're decent, and we're hardworking, and we're proud of being Hoosiers.
Words are kind of what you make of them, and if you take a bad word and embrace it, it kind of just empowers you.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm James Vavrick.
Muslim and non-Muslim Columbus community members recently gathered for Hijab Day, an event meant to facilitate understanding of hijab as not a headscarf, but as a barrier of humility to God. Ryan D. Bautista has more.
We wear hijab all the time, and we're constantly getting questions by men and women. And some don't want to ask us questions because they feel it's rude.
Saturday's event was organized by the Unitarian Universalist Congregation and the Islamic Society, including Hannah Omar.
So we wanted to create a platform in which you can come and safely ask your questions and have a discussion with Muslims in your community. Find out what this is, who we are, why do we wear this.
Many got the opportunity to try on hijab and talk with Muslims. Jessica Murnane, a non-Muslim community member, came to the event to learn more about the Muslim faith specifically hijab.
I've been saying a hijab this whole time as though it were a t-shirt or a coat, and through talking with folks and reading the literature here today, it is simply hijab, just wearing hijab. So I learned that right away when I walked in.
Some of the most common misconceptions about hijab were addressed by Muslim women like Mavish Gofran.
So basically it's a piece of cloth that fits around your head and covers your hair. So I chose the red one today because I thought I looked good in red. So to me that's what drove my choice of hijab.
Omar stresses that at the end of the day, it must be the woman's choice whether or not they wear hijab, why they wear hijab, and how they wear hijab.
There's no really set way of wearing the hijab. A lot of it has to do with one's own personal style, their culture, how they feel it represents them, or how comfortable they feel with it on.
The Gimme 5 campaign at Indiana University is bringing awareness to mental health through a record-setting event.
So we're trying to bring out as many people as we can to break the world record for the number of high fives in 30 seconds.
The event is meant to highlight 5 warning signs that someone may need mental health support. They include personality change, agitation, withdrawal, poor self-care, and hopelessness. The group has to wait more than 2 months to find out if they'll be in the record books. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org. The IU School of Education, preparing teachers, scholars, and administrators to improve teaching and learning in Indiana and around the world. More at education.indiana.edu. Main Source Bank, headquartered in Greensburg, Indiana, offering products and services to fit every stage of life. More information at mainsourcebank.com. Main Source, life needs a great bank. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company. Fiber Internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members, thank you.